Yeah. All right. Okay. So we're gonna get started now. So today's topic, we're going to be talking about Looker Studio. And basically, we're going to be talking about some game-changing data analytics with Looker Studio. And also, we're going to talk about how PPC Ninja can help you using Looker Studio and other BI tools more effectively and more efficiently. And I think I'm going to spend some time, first of all, laying the foundations of some of the data analytics tasks that all of us as advertisers need to do at all times. You know, like we have lots and lots of data, and almost all cases, we actually have too much data, and we are basically swimming or drowning in so much data. And a lot of us probably don't know how to use that data. And probably don't know how to combine different sources of data and make meaningful analysis and insights and draw insights from it. So I'm going to cover a few kind of basic concepts regarding data analytics and business intelligence in general. I will be showing you some examples of Looker Studio, what the potential is with Looker Studio, what kinds of visualization you can do with Looker Studio. And then I'm also going to be talking about a slightly bigger topic, which is a data ecosystem, which all of us at this point should be having if we don't have one already. So actually, before I jump in, I do want to check with you guys to see how many are actually using Looker Studio already in your day-to-day. Like, I'm not talking about like once in a while, but literally, do you use Looker Studio now? It used to be called Data Studio. Now it's called Looker Studio because Google acquired Looker and merged it with their Google Data Studio system. So just if you guys can quickly in the chat, just say if you are using Looker Studio on a maybe day-to-day basis, or even quite frequently, let's say once a week or whatever, could you just mention it in the chat? So that'll give me an idea of how many of you are familiar with it, so I can kind of fine-tune my presentation accordingly. So yeah, a few people saying weekly. Okay, that's good. If you haven't used it, that's also fine, because we're going to be learning how to use it. Now, of course, my goal is not to get into like step by step, because there's a lot of ways to learn Looker Studio, and it's also pretty detailed. Like, there's so much you can do with Looker Studio. So I guess my goal today would be to make sure that you have a good taste of Looker Studio, and see if there's any aspects of it that you would like to kind of pull into your regular analytics. Cool. Okay, so looks like a few of you are using it weekly, and most of you are probably not very familiar with it, or are still trying to gain some sort of understanding of Looker Studio. So let's jump into some basics of like data, basics of analytics, basics of business intelligence. So here's the statement that I hear often. My ACOS is X, or my my tacos is Y, or whatever. Now, this is actually a meaningless piece of information. You might be shocked, but it is actually meaningless when you say my ACOS is X or my tacos is Y. The reason is that your data is never static, right? So when you say ACOS is blah, 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 it's got to be over a certain time period. I guess all of us would agree on the fact that, if you're looking at ACOS by the hour, it's going to give you a lot of spikes. It's going to show you that, oh, it's terrible one moment, and then it's great one moment. And it's not something you can rely on, because it is volatile. It keeps changing. It goes up and down multiple times during the course of a day. Now, if you expand that time range from a day to, let's say, a week, right, then you start to see a pattern, and then your data starts to kind of, be a little bit more reliable. So then after a week, let's say if you kind of consolidate over a month, or let's say 90 days or over a year, then you start to see the data, the full picture of the data over a period of time. So, your data is never going to be static, because the moment you pull it or poll it, the next moment it's going to change, right? It is never ever static. So just remember that it's a fundamental kind of aspect of data. So if that's the case, you've got to understand the idea of snapshots. So what is a snapshot? It is the moment at which you snap the data or pull the report or look at your data and say, at this moment, this is what my data is saying. So for example, if you pull a search query report or a search term report over a certain date range from Amazon, it is merely a snapshot. That's all it is. It's just a snapshot. So it is a one-time cross-sectional measure of data that is destined to change. The very next day, the very next week, the very next month, it is subject to change, at all times. So what's the right thing to do? When you look at your data, you want to be able to make intelligent, reliable decisions. And so you can't do that if you're just looking at one date range and saying, this is it. Yeah, you cannot rely on a single day's worth of data. So then what do? You start to pull multiple ranges, and then you want to see the trend across those 4 ranges, 5 ranges, or whatever. You want to essentially stitch your data together. You want to make sure that it is now a time series and not a snapshot. So that's the biggest fundamental change that I want to bring about here. When you're dealing with so much data, you have to look at trends. You can't look at snapshots, right? So what's the difference between snapshots and time series, right? With snapshots, you can only do a one-time analysis of that moment, right? A one-time analysis, and then that data is thrown away because it's no longer valid the next moment. It only works for aggregate data, right? When you're aggregating data, you can look at a snapshot and say, okay, on this day, on this time range, my aggregates of my different KPIs was X, Y, and Z. Whereas if you look at time series data is basically that same data, but over a time series. So if you look at that, you convert it into a time series charting, which basically gives you the trend, right? So now this is interesting because now you're beginning to see how your data is trending over time. So this kind of time series gives you continuous data analysis, right? You can do a continuous check of how your data is going up or down, etc. You can also do drill downs. You can go down, further down into your data. You can see trends, right? You can combine different types of time series data. So when I say combine data, what I mean is that if some event happened on, let's say, Prime Day, 11th of July, in your ad data, but you also want to compare it with what happened in your organic data on the same date, right? So you can combine the data as long as they are both time series data, because time series data has one element in common. Can someone tell me what that element is? What is common between different time series? What is common between different time series data? You have data, let's say ad data, organic data. What is common? Does anyone have a good answer to that? Feel free to unmute yourself. Okay, looks like people are not coming forth with a response. So let me give you a hint. It's to do with time, right? So the thing, exactly. Thanks, Abby. So the thing that is common between 2 different time series data is that the date is the same. So when you have a series plot with another series plot and maybe a third and a fourth and a fifth, you can have 5 or 6 or 7 different series data. They all share the same dates, right? So you can plot them, and now you can see the correlations, right? And so when you do combination of data, then you can start to see correlations. You can see comparisons of what happened when this went down and when that went up. When your buy box went down, what happened to your organic data? What happened to your ad data? When your review count went down, what happened to your ad data? So all of this is possible when you have time series, which is why time series is the superior type of data that you should all be interested in, right? Not snapshots, it's time series that you should be interested in. You can also make predictions if you have time series data. Why? Because most softwares, most business intelligence softwares out there will be able to do regression analysis. What is regression? If anybody has done accounting 101, you'd know that regression is the ability to predict the future based on the past, right? So you can, even with Excel, you can put in a regression formula, and you can, from a time series, you can predict what's going to happen just by looking and feeding it a lot of data. You can determine what is going to happen next, right? That's how a lot of softwares predict what's going to happen. Now, the other thing also is that you will have data sufficiency with the time series, because it's not just limited to 1 day's worth of data. You have sufficient data. So you have like a month's data, more than a month's data, over year data, month over month, week over week data. So yeah, the conclusion of this slide is that time series is the more superior type of data, and all of us should be interested in laying our hands on time series, right? So that's one basic concept. The second one is that, in order for you to kind of get your hands on time series data or higher quality data, you have to have something called an ETL framework, where you're extracting your data from some sources, then you're transforming it to convert it into, let's say, a time series, or transforming it in a way so that you can pick certain types of data for analysis. Let's say a lot of your reports don't come pre-bundled with a data or date column, right? So for example, your search term reports that you download from Amazon, it does not have a data column, but you need that data column to then be able to blend it together with other forms of data. So that's the transformation process, where you clean up your data and make it ready for the next stage. And what is the next stage? Well, the next stage is where you're loading your data onto let's say, a data warehouse or a platform that will kind of ingest all of that time series data and help you to visualize it in a business intelligence software like Looker Studio. So the last step of this is visualization, and through visualization, you can draw insights and analysis. So this is a pretty standard kind of data science term, the ETL framework, but I've just added the ETL and V because the end point of having all of this data is that you should be able to visualize it, and then you should be able to draw insights from it, right? So that's the second kind of very important concept for data management. Now, of course, all of this sounds very kind of overwhelming. Like, how do I get all this data together? How do I put it together into a data warehouse? Like, never heard of it. So data warehouses, databases, these are concepts you can easily read up about so that you can educate yourself on higher quality data, right? So read up about data warehouse, databases, and just the basic concept that I talked about. But my goal here is to help you with a low-code or a no-code framework, right? So the low-code, no-code framework is another buzzword to help normal people like you and me to be able to take large amounts of data and combine them together and make judgment, kind of make decisions that will help us in our business, in our day-to-day business. So the low-code, no-code framework is, using certain tools that are already out there. For example, Google has a very good framework for data manipulation and data analysis, and I'm going to share about the Google framework. Now, you can go through anybody else, like you can go through the Amazon AWS framework. That's another kind of ecosystem with kind of different elements to it. Or you could go the Microsoft route, which also has their own business intelligence tool set. But I think because most of us have access to Gmail and have access to Google, I just thought that kind of the easiest way to align on a simple no-code, low-code framework would be to go with Google. So what does that ecosystem look like? So your organization basically needs a data ecosystem once you hit a certain threshold. Now you might say, what is that threshold? I just have 2 ASINs or 1 ASIN. I'm too small to manage this thing. I think you can still start early and not reach a point of overwhelm and then decide on your data ecosystem. It's better to start planning if you are planning to succeed on Amazon and planning to scale and grow on Amazon eventually, right? So your ecosystem, your data ecosystem can look something like this, where you have three elements that come from the Google family, which is Google Sheets. That's number one. Then you have Google BigQuery, which is the data warehouse that I was talking about earlier. And then you have Google Looker Studio, which is basically your visualization and insights software, right? So these three are basically the foundation of your data ecosystem. Now, how do these guys interact with each other, or how does data flow between each other? It's very seamless and very smooth, because within Google Sheets, you can actually have this concept of connected sheets. A connected sheet is basically just allowing data that's sitting anywhere else, like in BigQuery or whatever, or in Looker Studio, and it simply kind of imports that data right into Google Sheets. You probably have never seen this, or may not have heard of it, but if you go and look in your Google Sheets, any Google Sheets data tab, you will be able to see connected sheets, or you could look it up. That's a term that you'll be able to find information about. So imagine that there's data that's kind of locked into Amazon, right? It's unless you go to Amazon and request for a report, you don't get it, right? Unless you're using some sort of API that's streaming data to you. Most of you in this room might still be relying on that whole idea of going to Amazon, requesting a report, downloading it, storing it somewhere, and then doing something with it, hopefully. Hopefully, I'm saying hopefully because it gets overwhelming, and most of us don't do that, don't get to that stage. We are interested in the data, but then we don't know what to do with it. So imagine being able to download from Amazon with the help of, let's say, a VA, for example, or if you have a system of streaming data, then you can use APIs to bring that data into your system. But any one of you in this room can actually just use a VA and convert that snapshot data into a time series, right? So this can actually be either sent to BigQuery, or you could send it to Google Sheets. The only trouble with Google Sheets is that it cannot handle too much data. Like after a point, it'll break, in the sense that it'll ask you to wait, or it just won't load. Like it just doesn't have the capacity to handle volumes of data, which is why our preference, our recommendation is Google BigQuery. With BigQuery, you can actually create like a schedule. So let's say a schedule basically means that if you're supplying data to a certain location on Google Drive, let's say, you're just asking your VA to dump data into a Google Drive, there could be a mechanism where your some sort of script runs and picks up that data and dumps it into Google BigQuery, and Google BigQuery just collates it, like appends to an existing table, and just keeps building your data that way. So that's one way of going about it. Another, I guess this symbol, I should have said what it is. This is Keepa. So a lot of people have used Keepa. This gives you pricing information over time, also BSR trends, things like that. So this is another tool that a lot of people feel like they want, but they don't know how to get it, or how to lay their hands on it. So there's a Keepa API, which can also push data, or whatever choice of data you have, directly into BigQuery. A lot of systems are actually doing that now. A lot of systems are opting for sending, any kind of data that you want for not so much money. Like you don't have to spend a ton of money. Those data streams, or those APIs can actually push data right into your own BigQuery, and then you can kind of use that as your warehouse to then connect things up in Looker Studio. So this is kind of what it looks like. Now, an important piece of this is the advertising data. Your advertising data from Amazon does not get streamed to you. You have to download it, right? But if you are with PPC Ninja, if you guys are already using PPC Ninja, then you know that there is already a built-in feature where we are pushing your ads data, very valuable ads data, into a time series into Google Sheets. I don't know if you guys have seen it or know where it is, but let me show you right now where it is, and it's pretty awesome. So this is a demo account, and if you go into your account settings here, there's a space here that says Google Spreadsheets email. Now here is where you want to put in your Gmail, it requires a Gmail account. You can't use a Hotmail or Yahoo, etc. You need a Gmail account because then it'll associate the Google Sheets associated with that Gmail and start pumping your data from PPC Ninja directly into that. Okay, so the moment you enter your Google email here, then what happens is that within an hour, you will get an email saying, hey, we have set up your Google Sheets and your Looker Studio. So we give you a free Looker Studio template for analyzing your data already. Like it's free for any PPC Ninja user, you get that right off the bat. And where can you find that? If you go into your manage profiles here, you will see spreadsheet link. This will basically lead to a sheet like this. It's got all of your data. It's right here. So you can see time series report daily, all time. So by date, you can see, what your ad type was, what your sales was, what your spend was, the number of conversions, etc., etc. You can also get your keyword report. You can get your campaign placement report, your campaign report. All of these things are getting pushed into this Google Sheets link here daily, once a day. It's refreshed every single day. So you have access to live data. Now imagine if you have access to this kind of data, you can use some sort of, like I said, BigQuery can be used to pick up that data daily, take a snapshot of that, and can convert that into a longer time series report, which is great. And then we also give you a Looker Studio link. When you click on this, it brings you to this dashboard, which already has, it has all your KPIs. Now the tacos KPI is something you can actually upload here into your, you can absolutely upload your sales and traffic by date report right here. And you can do it for the past 2 years, like just upload it once a week, refreshing it up. And then this thing gets updated with your tacos information and your sales information. And you can see all of those things on a sales trend. You can get performance by ad type, week over week, month over month. You can see your spend and sales by product, all that fun stuff. So this is provided to PPC Ninja users for free. Make sure you check it out, but that's just when we're just getting started. We have so much more on Looker Studio that you can do. You can actually edit this and customize it to your needs, to suit your needs. And that's what we're going to be talking about today. All right, so let's just see if there's any questions. Gosh, okay. Yeah, feel free to ask questions if they come to you, and we can handle them at the end, okay? So here's the data ecosystem. We've covered that. Now let's talk about how you can visualize your data. So what is data visualization? It is basically an art and a science. It's the art of being able to display information in a very easy to absorb and very easy to ingest way so that you are able to make decisions, your business decision, right? It is also a science because it requires you to know what things to plug in with what else, and also what kind of questions to ask of your data. Because if you don't know what questions to ask of your data, it's as good as trash, right? So visualizing your data requires you to have the mindset to be able to ask the right questions. Now, these are some of the things you can do with business intelligence tools. Now, business intelligence tools like Looker Studio help you do all these things. So number one, you can join and blend data from multiple sources. We've already talked about it, and we also talked a little bit about how you join them. You join them on one or two common elements, like you join them on date, or you can join them on, let's say, skew. Sometimes you want to pick some sort of data on that has skew information and another table that has ASIN information. And so how do you merge them together? You can actually you can basically pick up a third table that has a lookup, which means you have an ASIN and the corresponding skew, and then join those three pieces of data together. So now you can actually read even your ASIN reports as though they are skew-based reports, right? So there's that. You can join and blend data from multiple sources and even static files like CSV files or just flat Google Sheets, right? That's a very powerful way of looking at or analyzing your data. Number two, you can visualize it. Like I said, you can analyze your data and you can drill down, right? You can drill down. By drill down, I mean, you might start at, let's say, a high level concept, for example, or a high level dimension, such as an account. And then within that account, you can drill down to, let's say, a SKU. And within that, you can drill down to, let's say, a campaign. Within that, you can drill down to keywords or whatever. So when you join data and when you start this whole journey of visualizing your data in intelligent ways, then you can actually start to do drill downs, and then you can find out where the root cause of the problem might be, or it might help you to troubleshoot your data in ways that you cannot do with just flat data files, right? Then third thing you can do with business intelligence tools is you can create dashboards for anomaly detection. These, I'm calling them push-based systems because they tell you what is wrong, right? Or where the problem is. It's designed in a way that it tells you that here is a problem, pay attention here. On the other hand, you could also create dashboards that are pull-based, which means that you have to still interact with them and drill down and find out where is the problem. So those are like troubleshooting type of dashboards. So your dashboards can be designed. You can even use both those types of dashboards. You can use one dashboard, which is just for giving you all the bad news, for example, the worst drops, the worst ACOS, the worst keyword, and so on. That could be just one dashboard of the worst. Another dashboard could be like a drill down thing, or let's say another dashboard could be opportunities. Those are really up to you. Like the sky's the limit when it comes to designing dashboards that can just use the basic information that you already have and just generate different views out of that. You can slice and dice your data in different ways and present it to yourself or to your team or to your clients if you're an agency, so that everybody can, can really get on speed, because your competitors are using data, and if you aren't, then it's a problem. Like you really need to up your data game, and that's what this is all about, right? So now let's look at some practical things of how do you connect data sources with Looker Studio. So I'm just going to show an example of a template that we use for doing PPC audits. So here's the actual sample. So this is just a sample, it's a dummy sample, but basically it's a pretty cool report because it gives you a 30-day your 30-day KPIs for everything that is valuable for just to know what's going on in the account. You have your impressions, your clicks, your CTRs, conversion, and so on, your tacos, and your PPC to sales ratio. You have all of that at this high level. There's other things like ad type utilization, ad type performance. Where are we getting this information from? It's all coming from that single report that I was telling you earlier about. It comes directly from PPC Ninja. It's a push. We push that system, we push that data into the cloud, into Google Sheets. And this report is basically using that. That's all. There's nothing to it. And it's a very fancy report. It gets used a lot within our organization when we do PPC audits for people. We basically need to hook this up with a different data source, and voila, you can just reuse this report over and over again. So any of you agencies out there, I encourage you to come up with some sort of Looker dashboard and then just switch the data source around, and then you can basically start doing audits in that fashion. So just look at the richness of this report. You can find sponsored products, sponsored displays, Skew Performance. You can find out your keyword performance by broad phrase and exact, keyword spend, wasted keyword spend. So these are all formulas that you can actually tweak, and you can set what is the meaning of wasted keyword. A wasted keyword could be anything that has more than 20 clicks and 0 sales, right? So I might be able to show you guys the formula. So if you look here, okay, so it's actually a calculated field. So yeah, so basically there's a lot you can do here. You can create your own formulas even and say, show me the, let's say, something divided by something else. So in this Looker Studio, there's actually two things you can do with all these widgets. These are all called widgets, and you can add more from here. You can pull any kind of widgets and drag and drop, etc., shape it, color it, style it, whatever you want to do. You also have the styles tab, which gives you more precision over how to display this information, right? So you get the idea. It's both an art and a science. You've got to know what data you need, and then you can make it pretty, and you can make it more informative by the way it's been displayed. So that's basically a little bit about, you can simply switch out the data source. Now, what kind of data sources does Looker Studio support? So here are some of the data sources that Looker Studio supports. So there is another Looker Studio. For example, if you want to connect one Looker Studio report with another Looker Studio report, you can do that. You can connect it to your Google Analytics if you want. Sometimes some people have their own websites and they have Google Analytics hooked up. By simply selecting this and giving it the right permissions, that data can start coming in, and then you can visualize it within the system. If you're running Google Ads, Google Sheets, which I just mentioned, BigQuery, which I also mentioned, there's so much more. Plus, you can also do simple file uploads. If you just have a CSV and that's all you have, that's okay. You can upload it, and then you can visualize with Looker Studio and get all kinds of interesting insights. Okay. Now, this is the Amazon data sources for your data analytics, view. Basically, you need all kinds of data in order to complete the story. Number one, you need your ad data to be in time series, which PPC Ninja is already providing you if you are a PPC Ninja user. Then you have organic data. It has to come from somewhere. Your organic data also needs to be in time series. One idea for those of you that don't have any access to an API or another tool is that you can yourself turn your existing business reports into time series. How do you do that? Well, you simply ask a VA to download it on a regular cadence, like it could be daily, it could be weekly or monthly, whatever you want, and then have that be stitched together in BigQuery. Now, BigQuery is not easy. You need some little bit of help there, but I'm just saying that either you use Sheets or you use BigQuery, because BigQuery can be more stable. Then search query performance data. Again, this is something that you want over time, because just that snapshot isn't that useful. At least it's not super useful to me. I mean, I can see that, some keywords, Amazon is giving certain search terms relevance for certain of my products, for example. So I know that they are being treated as relevant keywords. However, what do I do with that snapshot? I want to see if over time it's made any difference. Like over time, does it still hold on as my number one key, my number one search term or not? So I definitely want to see search query performance data as a time series. And then number 4, you could basically collate your keyword rank tracking as a time series. Now, a number of us use tools like Helium 10, Jungle Scout, whatever, that gives you some trends, right? It gives you trends over time of your keywords. However, that data is locked inside their system. They don't let it out as an API. So you cannot combine that data with anything else. It's just locked there. So you cannot even see how your keyword rank tracking is trending. If you wanted to compare your keyword trends over your ad data, you wouldn't be able to do that. So that's why you need to get all of that data out of those, walled gardens or, kind of closed systems, and create this new way of looking at data where, you're getting streams of data from different sources and you're combining them however you like. So you own the data, you combine it the way you like, and the common factor in all these elements is time, your dates. And once you have everything in BigQuery, then simply hook up Looker Studio and do all kinds of fun stuff. Okay. So now let's look at some examples, right? Let's look at examples of stuff that I've done with some Looker Studio comparisons of, different data sources. So PPC versus organic data on the same timeline. So this is the first example. So look at this chart carefully. It's the red one is the red bar is your ad sales. The gray bar is organic sales. And then I've also kind of created a calculated field, which is also possible. It's very easy in Looker Studio to create another field and call it whatever you like. So this, I call it PPC ratio, but basically what I've done is I've divided ad sales by total sales, and that gave me a percentage. It told me on that day, my ratio of PPC to total sales was 24%. And then I can see that trend over time, which is really cool because now I can, I can actually see when I make some, let's say if I have a deal going on, or let's say Prime Day is happening or something, I can actually see my data and know what the ratio of PPC, of sales coming from PPC versus sales coming from other sources was. And then I can decide if I want to double down on certain, strategies, so this kind of data lookup is really, really insightful for me to make better business decisions. So that's one example. Another example is the search query performance over time. So look at this view. This basically shows me my search queries over time. So this is my October, November, December, January, February, all the way to May. And what I've done here is that I have simply multiplied the number of purchases for the brand into the price, or the average price for that search query. So Amazon gives you a price column in this search query performance report. So you can create a calculated field which just multiplies those two, and then you can plot that calculated field over time. How cool is that, right? So you can actually see that for this brand, this search query was actually delivering something like $23,000 worth. Just one search query was delivering $23,000 worth. And then in December, it went up to 51,000, then it came down to 31,000, and then it came down to 16,000. So you already know literally the value of that keyword. Of course, this data isn't complete because search query performance isn't about every sale that you've had, but anything that originated from a search query that Amazon is providing us, right? So by putting some sort of numeric value or a monetary value on it, you can actually see that this keyword is way more valuable than this keyword, right? You can see that very easily, even though the count of conversions might be equivalent, but this is bringing you more money than this, right? So there's those sorts of analysis you can do over time. And also I've kind of created a spark line and created some trends so you can visually see how things were spiking over different months. Again, this is a time series data. This is another one. This is share of voice, again, coming from the search query performance report. This is share of voice by search query over time. It's a pivot table, right? Again, it's using time series data. How did I get that time series, by the way? I simply asked a VA to download my monthly search query performance report for 9 months. And then I stitched it all together. By the way, search query performance, when you download it, it actually comes with a column that has the date in it, which is actually what you should be looking for. Those sorts of data sources are super valuable because they've got the time inbuilt into it. Otherwise, you have to add the time on your own, right? So that's how you did. That's how I did kind of share of voice by search query over time. Now, here's another way of looking at it, where, what I'm doing is I'm looking at the impression total count, which is in blue. So as you can see, the impressions for everybody for that search query, not just my brand, for everybody, it kind of peaked in December, which is obvious. It was like a kind of a seasonal thing. And then my brand share percentage, that's again coming from one of the columns in the search query performance report, that was trending at 11.75, then it came down, went up, and then came down to 8.2, which is basically like a smaller share of the whole pie. So I can literally tell that this brand is not aligned with the holiday sales, because it actually went in the opposite direction. It should have also gone up, but it did not. It went actually down. So this is how you can look at your data and say, oh, okay, this is what's happening in my data. Again, this is only possible when you look at it over time, which is what I did here. Now, how did I come up with this system for analyzing search query performance? It took me 120 minutes the first time to set the system up. And then it now takes about 10 minutes monthly for for me to kind of take what the VA has downloaded and then just upload it in one destination, and it just keeps adding to whatever is already set up. So here's the SOP for that. I'm starting with Amazon, having them download the monthly SQP report, and then upload it to BigQuery. And then from there, I'm connecting it to Google Sheets and then Google Connected Sheets. And that's how I created my pivot table that I just showed you. So this is one way of analyzing your data. Another one I did was keyword analysis. So this thing here is kind of cool. It's called a Sankey diagram, where you can basically connect two different kind of somewhat related pieces of data and see how they are connected actually. So let me show you the actual one, because what I've done is here I've connected search terms with keywords, right? And I've concatenated the match type also, so that I know exactly which match type and keyword combination gave me the most sales from a certain search term, which is super valuable. So let me just show it to you here. If I do match type keyword to search term, this one. So as you can see, it's loading. Okay, so here is the Sankey diagram, where all it has in the back is your search term report. That's it, just the search term report, and you can basically ask it to connect those two sources up, customer search term and your match type. That's what I did here. So okay, so how is this visible? Let me just show it to you. So here, basically, I can see on the left side, I have all my search terms, and I can actually see that this search term came from this keyword match type combination. This search term also came from certain other words here, like this one came from the auto campaign. So I can basically do like a maybe once a month analysis of something matching to something else and see if I can learn something from my data. And where can you find a chart like this? You can actually go in here, and it's called Sankey, and that's what you basically use for this type of analysis. So that was the Sankey one example, and the weight is basically my ACOS. It's basically, you can define whatever weight you want. So the thickness of the band, it is linked to how the ACOS was it, small ACOS, high ACOS, and so on. You can also change that to be sales, etc. Cool. Then, so for this was a 30-minute exercise. All it needed was go to your ads dashboard, go to your campaign manager reports, and then download the search term report, and then just feed that into Looker Studio. Just an import is good enough. So that's an easy one that all of you can maybe try out. It's probably not going to take a long time, but just try out the Sankey chart and see what kind of interesting combinations you can come up with. I'll show you a few more. This is another one. Keywords to match type. So broad phrase and exact. You can see these keywords, and you can see which keyword is coming from which match type, and the thickness is decided by the sales amount. So that way you can see, okay, the most sales are coming from my phrase match or my exact match. You can see that visually. I'll show you one more example of a similar Sankey diagram, which is a placement performance report. So placement performance can actually give you an idea of where your campaigns are being placed, right? Amazon has two placements for sponsored brand ads. There's top of search, and then there's rest of search. The top of search, of course, is more interesting because it gives you a full lifestyle. It gives you a lifestyle image, It allows you to see 3 products, and then people can click on it and go to some destination. Whereas the rest of search placement is not that attractive. I mean, and it barely has enough information. So sometimes you want to actually split out your data by placement type to see how the performance is. So this is what I did. I said, took all my campaigns and I split them out by placements. So for this, I needed the placement report, which comes from, campaign manager reports. And then you can split them out and see it like this visually. You can see what part of your sales came from top of search, what part came from rest of search, and you can kind of get an idea of, okay, this is working better for this versus that. So visually, you can confirm things. This again takes not more than 30 minutes. So you can try it out. Anybody can try it out. Just go to your campaign placement report and hook it up with Looker Studio and see what you have. It would be a nice intro to Looker Studio if you want to get your hands dirty there. Skew performance over time. Now this will require your skew, your organic skew data to be downloaded from business reports, right? And once you've downloaded it and you want to stitch them together, meaning you want to get month over month data. So that's what I did. I stitched them all together using BigQuery. And this is what I got. I can basically pick any SKUs, any ASINs or SKUs, and I can see how they trended versus some of the other ASINs, like how did they trend over the same time period. There's no place on Amazon that you get SKU-based comparisons like this. There is just one place I know, it's called Skew Central, but that only gives you information about a single SKU at a time. You cannot combine multiple SKUs. Maybe you have variations or whatever. You want to see how your variations trended over time. You can see that from this view only because I've converted a snapshot into a time series. Here's another one. I can look at my unit session percentage for my selected SKUs. I can pick a few SKUs and say, just for these SKUs, tell me what is my unit session percentage over time. And I can see some interesting patterns. Oh, this variation kind of started spiking in March. The others were, kind of similar. So you see a pattern there, and then you can draw some conclusions about it. You cannot do this with with snapshots. Here's another one: buy box percentage by selected SKUs over time. Again, this is coming from your simple, business report by child ASIN report. Just download it once a month. That's it. Stitch it together and plot your graphs here with Looker Studio. Let me show you the actual one. 1 second. Okay, so business report. Okay, so this is so Looker Studio has an edit mode and a view mode. So I just switched to the view mode, and as you can see here, I have basically I've got my ASIN, I've got my sales, unit session percentage, buy box. I can add more fields from my basically the report that I downloaded. All of those fields are available to plot in these tables. I just plotted 3 just for demonstration purposes. I picked 5. I said to Looker to just show me the top 5. Here's the buy box over time. Here's the unit session percentage over time. And this is another kind of fun way of looking at total sales trend by top 5 ASINs. You can see the size of the bubble. I set the size to be equal to the amount of sales coming from that. So not only can I see how much sales they got relative to each other, but I can also see what the size of that sales was. So that's actually quite pretty cool, that we should, that we can look at many different ways. I'm just going to do a quick demo of something that I can add right here and show you. So I'm going to add a control here, and this is a date range control, right? I'm going to create one right here. So I just created one, and what I can do here is I can say, so my data is showing from September through April. So let's say if I just wanted the Q4 of last year, okay? So I'll just go here. I'll say September 1st. And date range December 31st of 2022. I say apply. Now notice that my data has been updated. All of these charts on the page got updated because I have picked a time range, and I can do analysis like this. I can just create a control that applies to everything. Now, let's say if I want to say, I want to only see those ASINs whose total sales was greater than $1,000, let's say, for example. I just created that as a filter. And so now it's done it. It's basically created, it's only showing me those that have sales greater than $1,000. Now I can do another thing. I can say, I only want to see sales for these SKUs. I can pick SKUs, very flexible, right? Only those SKUs are going to show up. That's it. Done. Now, remember I told you earlier that there are certain reports from Amazon that are super annoying because they don't give you SKU information, but you only have ASIN information. So how do you combine a SKU-based report with a map, maybe a map of a ASIN to SKU? You can easily do that with something called blended data. Within Looker Studio, you can actually blend different sources of data together so that they can be used interchangeably. So if I wanted to convert this whole thing into a SKU and ASIN thing, I could do that by simply creating a blended data source, right? So I guess that's beyond the scope of today's conversation, but I just wanted to give you a taste of all the things that are possible with it. So let's move on. For this last bit of analyzing performance by SKU, it took 90 minutes the first time, and now it just takes 10 minutes per month. Again, the detail paid by child, monthly report, you need to append the date column. It's not there. Like I told you earlier, not all the data will come in a clean format. You have to do some data munging or cleaning up. And that's something your VA can do with a clean SOP. Just tell them to add a date column. If there isn't any, then add a date column and convert it magically into what I just showed you, right? Upload it to Google Sheets, or you can upload it to Google BigQuery, and then visualize in Looker Studio. Okay, so we're almost at the end of our conversation today, but there's still a few important things that I wanted to cover. So number one, what I showed you today was, I'm basically trying to open you guys' minds to the possibility of doing this sort of stuff yourself in-house, right? Versus using some sort of out-of-the-box package. And the reason why I'm showing you both options side by side is because of many reasons. So in the in-house route, you can see that it will be much cheaper because Looker Studio is free. Who doesn't like free? Some of the data sources that we already have access to are also free. There might be some data sources that are not free, but you can pay some sort of service, not a whole lot of money, but you can maybe get hold of that data for a lot cheaper than going after like a ready-made software that combines all these data sources, right? So it's cheaper, it's better, it's faster. You know what kind of data you want to look at. So it's highly customizable. Actually, in this day and age, especially with agencies, if you guys are out there, everybody wants to visualize data their own way. Everybody has a style, a philosophy, a methodology. And for them, having data in the format that they can consume best is super important. So that's what Looker Studio and this whole data system is giving us. It's giving us customization, right? Which is super valuable. Now, it does require a data analytics mindset. And I know it's not easy for a lot of us in this room. Maybe it's like too hard, or, it's too much, or you might think, okay, I'm just fine with whatever I'm getting with, Seller Central, just the basics is fine. That's okay. And that's where you draw your line and say, okay, this is not for me, or this is for me, right? But if you are hungry for like going to the next step and doing a little bit more than your competitors, then just remember that you need a data analytics mindset. And it's probably good that you start now, even if you don't intend to use that mindset. Just PPC Ninja intends to do a lot of these sessions, this kind of session, and hopefully you'll pick up something along the way, right? Now let's compare the other side, where the software option, where you have out-of-the-box softwares they can get very expensive. Some of the big softwares out there that give you everything under the sun, all the bells and all the whistles that you might need, the perfect software. I mean, actually, I don't know if there's a perfect software, because all of these softwares basically control your data in their walled gardens. You cannot get that data out. Once you break ties with them, then that data is lost. So first of all, you pay for that expensive service, and then you don't own that data. That's a problem, right? It's expensive, right? And then you'll always have more features than you'll ever need in certain types of pretty, all-in-one tools and things like that. You might have more features than you need, and that's when it becomes like, do I really need it? Why should I pay for it, etc., etc. It might also be inflexible because the design of that UI will be based on whoever it was that designed it. They have a certain understanding of how that data should be used, and that's how they created the UI, and it may not be for you. So you're like, I'm stuck, I'm kind of restricted. And then in this, approach also, you will still need an analytical mindset, because you will need to query the data for what you want out of it. You want to be able to construct the queries that will give you the response that you can then use to make better business decisions, right? So either way you go, in-house versus using like a ready-made software, you can decide at your end. But these are some of the skills you will need to setting up your data ecosystem that we've been talking about in this session. So number one, you will need the skill of being able to transform your data with Google Sheets. So get familiar with Google Sheets and be comfortable with it. Google Looker Studio is one, Google BigQuery is the other. You should be able to understand basic concepts of data scrubbing, like cleaning up and preparing for the next stage and so on. I told you about the ETLV framework. You should be able to data visualize. Like if you don't know how to visualize data, then you might be using the wrong type of charts for the wrong type of thing. For example, you won't use a pie chart for a time series, right? It just doesn't make sense. So you need to use the right thing for the right type of data. Storyboarding, whoever is analyzing data at your organization needs to be able to tell a story with the data. Otherwise, it's just flat and it doesn't speak to you, right? There's some advanced things that you may or may not do right now, but just know that this will be helpful if you know regular expressions. This is just a way of reading your data with a kind of language that substitutes patterns in data. So let's say if you want to find numbers within a string of data, you can just basically just put a regex or a regular expression and say, find me anything in this data that has this pattern in it, right? Another skill that you might need later on, not now, but once you get the hang of it, is SQL, which is structured query language. Again, these two last ones are super advanced. So if you are advanced, then you know what I'm talking about, right? You'll need SQL for AMC, you'll need it for a whole lot of other kind of data analytics preparation and stuff like that, for querying large volumes of data, etc. So now I want to basically talk a little bit about PPC Ninja's data services, which is something new that we're launching here. So the concept of a data room, this is something that we want to expose everybody to here. And it may not be for you, but I'm just going to explain it anyway. So imagine having keyword rank tracking data in a time series format going to BigQuery. You add data, time series going to BigQuery, your organic data going to BigQuery, and your SQP data monthly going to BigQuery. Now, who owns that BigQuery? You do. That's how we're designing this. So you hold on to your data forever. You don't have to be tied to PPC Ninja or to any other software. Softwares can come and go, but your data is your data, and you keep it as a time series for as long as you are a seller or an agency or whatever. So owning the data is what we're stressing on here. So essentially, the way this system will work is that the data room will live in your domain. So you will set up BigQuery, and we'll help you set that up so that it's ready for ingesting all kinds of data from all kinds of different sources. So we can help you set that up and build that system, the data ecosystem. And then you can connect different sources through different pipes. And there's many tools right now that are streaming you API data directly to BigQuery. So even if you know zero coding, just by connecting those APIs to BigQuery, you can start to see much richer data that you can use in so much, in so many different ways. So the idea is getting time series data out into the cloud. PPC Ninja is committed to being to exporting your data into a place where you can basically own that data, right? So for example, we are already doing this. We're already pushing your own advertising data directly into Google Sheets every single day. If you haven't set it up, I mentioned it earlier in this session, definitely watch the recording and find out where that is. It's in the setting in the back end. So this is already happening. So that the idea is that you're not reliant on PPC Ninja's user interface to do the advanced calculations that you need to do, or the advanced visualizations that you need to do. Now, we do already provide you a Looker Studio template, which has all the basic things you need to, let's say, present to a client. But you can do advanced stuff with that. You don't have to stick to that. You can turn things around. You can replace our logo with your logo. You can add more widgets using the same data that is in this data source. So all you need is a data source, and you need a visualization platform. You can also use other BI softwares with our Google Sheets export, and this could be Tableau or anything else, right? Anything that hooks up to Google Sheets is good to go. It can be used for visualizing your data. So an example of the data room that I was talking about earlier that we're going to be offering as a service is it would have ad data, organic data, search query performance data, keyword rank tracking data, all as time series in this BigQuery room. And then you connect it up with Looker Studio. Now I'm going to end here with the final offer here, which is in case anybody here is interested in a free data audit with recommendations, which basically means we will examine your current data ecosystem and try to figure out what you might be able to do to get the maximum out of your data. So we will be picking 5 individuals from this audience. So if you are interested to apply, this is the QR code. Go ahead and scan it with your cell phones right now while it's up. And then there's just a little form there that says, we need some information basically to know like what is your level in the data, data analytics kind of journey, and that way we can kind of help you later on. Even if you're an agency, we're kind of happy to work with you, and because we figured out a bunch of stuff at our agency and we're happy to share that. You may or may not use our service, but that's okay. But the idea is that we want more and more people to have this kind of mindset so that we can all be kind of free of the shackles of like softwares controlling our data. We want to be able to have pipes going from here and there where you can connect to anybody's data and connect to anybody's offering and stream your data into a place that you own and you can keep with you, and keep making, driving insights from that. Okay, so I'm gonna stop my screen share now and see if there's any questions. We might be able to do a few. We're a little bit over time, but I'm happy to do a little bit of a Q&A in case there's any comments. I'd be happy to listen to comments as well. So yeah, I guess we'll give it another like 5 minutes maybe. Any questions, any burning questions, or was it a lot? Was it useful, not useful? Yeah, any comments as well? So I'm looking at the chat here. Mitch says, how are keyword ranks gathered? So keyword, keyword rank tracking is something that PPC Ninja is going to be offering very soon. We're already beta testing it with a few of our clients. So the way it works is that inside our software, you will basically enter all the keywords that you want to track. And then you will also add what ASINs you want to track it for. And then you can put some tags on it also. So it's like a much better view than some of the software that are out there that give you keyword rank tracking, because you can also track your competitors and the same keywords for your competitors as well. So imagine having a pivot table which has ASIN view followed by a keywords view, or vice versa. You can say for this keyword, tell me the ranks for all of my ASINs for this keyword in one view. Or you could say, for this ASIN, give me all of the keywords that I'm ranking for on the ad side, on the organic side. So there's two different ways you can pivot this data, right? So again, try to think in terms of pivots. It's going to be way more powerful if you can do it in both directions, not just the way that some of the, out of the box tools like Helium 10 or Viral Launch or Jungle Scout, etc. They give you just per ASIN keyword rank, and what we are offering is both directions, right? So again, very powerful data that you can visualize in Looker Studio as well. And what else? Bailey asks, at what point is it necessary to start learning SQL? So SQL, structured query language, becomes important when you have let's say large volumes of data like we're talking about right now. So you can write simple queries like look for all the data that meets a certain criteria and give me just those rows, and then with that subset I can create some sort of visual or whatever, or exclude certain rows from everything. So let's say if you want to do something like exclude, give me all the data except for Prime Week or something like that, some exclusions. You can do exclusions, additions. So if you want to do fancy stuff like that, well, then you'll need some basics of SQL. Also, Amazon is giving you Amazon Marketing Cloud. If you want to be able to understand how your advertising data, looks like across different systems like DSP or sponsored, products and so on. You can actually use SQL to kind of find things like what's the shortest, what is the time to purchase, or you can use SQL to find out how many touch points did a buyer have in their journey, etc. So it is a little advanced, I would say. It is for people who have a lot of data and a lot of spread out data, and that at that point SQL becomes way more powerful for you than if you had just maybe 5 or 6 ASINs, and then you probably don't need it, right? Just to say that. So Oksana says, how can we access the data room service? So we're launching it soon, Oksana. You'll be hearing about more about it soon. And then, so Mohammed says, should the frequency of these time series be the same as SQP gives us weekly, monthly, quarterly? So do we need to have all the data sources on the same distribution? Should we all be doing either weekly, daily, monthly, etc.? Yeah, so as far as possible, you want to align it, but sometimes you cannot, right? So what happens is that what I was doing earlier was that I was downloading just monthly reports for my organic data. But if I can get it granular to a daily level, that's perfect. But if I can't do that, then it's okay to have, you can combine different data sources, one that is based on time or dates, and the other one that's based on week. You can still combine those two. It's just that there'll be gaps, right? So there'll be gaps between when you had that data and when you did. And then you can also kind of do consolidation by week on the daily one, so that you can then neatly kind of compare those two as time series. Jay says, can we get at least an estimate weekly or monthly tacos per SKU? Yeah, so the weekly or monthly tacos per SKU is one of the goals of being able to combine your organic data and your SKU-based organic data, right? Sorry, SKU-based advertising data. That's how you can get SKU-based tacos. That's what everybody wants, right? Eventually we want that, but so far it's been hard to do it. Like it's been so clunky to, it's so hard for us to even know which ASINs are coming from, the sales of, sponsored products and sponsored brands. Like sponsored brands is the toughest because sponsored brand doesn't have a clean way of separating out attribution to the 3 or more ASINs. But at least PPC Ninja gives you SKU-based performance by ad type. So that way, at least you know that sponsored product contributed to this much for the SKU, sponsored display contributed this much for the SKU, and the sponsored brand contribution is coming. I think we should be out with it soon, pretty soon. And we're doing a little bit of extrapolation there so that you at least have something rather than nothing, right? Something is better than nothing. So it'll be inaccurate to a little degree because of how Amazon doesn't give us that split, but at least it'll be useful in terms of being more complete than it currently is. Okay. All righty. I think that's all we have here. Cool. So thank you so much, everybody, for joining in today. And we look forward to having you at, future webinars like this one. So today's topic was kind of mostly about data analytics, not so much about just ads. And we've combined different sources to kind of come to better business decisions. So stay tuned. We're coming up with more, and we're going in the direction of like data rooms and things like that. So with that, I'd like to sign off here, and thank you so much again for joining, everybody. Take care. Bye, guys. Thank you. Thanks, Judy. Thanks, Danielle. Thanks, Derek.